And we're back. Welcome everybody back to our show. This is episode 2. My name is Jay or Andy. I don't know what I'm going to go by yet. Let's count a counter. Let's have a counter for that. Anyway, we're here to talk a little bit of sports, and with me as always is my good buddy, Jack. So Jack, how was your weekend?
It was great. I went to my first ever and last ever Vans Warped Tour. Yes, it rained, we got evacuated, my wallet got ruined, I chafed really, really bad, but I got to meet Simple Plan, so I guess that's a win for me.
Well, it's still a bigger win than anything that the Baltimore Orioles have done all year, so... Anyway, what do we got in store for our listeners for the show today?
Well, first we're going to dive into some of the latest and best NBA breaking news, free agency updates. We're going to talk about the All-Star Game coming up next week. We're going to talk about who we think should have been in, who should not have been in, and we're going to go cover any other baseball topics that we might deem interesting.
So sit back, kick your feet up, get a little comfortable blanket, get some popcorn, and enjoy the ride.
But don't forget to wear your seatbelt. Cops are out there, people.
So last week, due to circumstances that were out of our hands, we weren't able to cover a huge story that happened in the NBA. But now we've had about a week to process everything and get all the information. So Jack, you want to let our listeners in on what's going on?
Gladly. And that is the news of Demarcus Cousins signing a 1-year, $5.3 minimum salary to play with the Golden State Warriors.
Or better said, literally the definition of ring chasing. He is going there to get a ring, and that is all.
And that is exactly what he will get, and it sucks.
Because at this point, it's proving every critic of the NBA right. You are making it so non-competitive that not only teams don't want to play in it, viewers don't want to watch it.
So what the overall meaning of Demarcus Cousins signing is for the Golden State Warriors is that the Warriors improved on their weakest link. In the past, they have had guys like JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia, and Kevin Looney be their center. And now they have completely upgraded that position by signing Demarcus Cousins to that 1-year deal. Now, I understand Demarcus Cousins is coming off an Achilles injury, and that can be career-threatening and or career-ruining. Just take Kobe Bryant's career after he came off that Achilles injury in the 2012-2013 season. He was never the same since. I mean, he did have that 160-point game performance to end his career, but before that, he was a shell of himself. And you never know, DeMarcus Cousins may be a shell of himself. But even an 80% healthy DeMarcus Cousins is still potentially the best center in the NBA. And now the Warriors have the best center in the NBA, arguably the best defending power forward in the NBA, one or second best small forward in the NBA in Kevin Durant, the best shooting guard in the NBA, Klay Thompson, and arguably a top 5 point guard, and 2-time MVP Steph Curry in their starting lineup. Now tell me, do you think that's fair?
No, it's not fair. And you have viewers now going to different sports to look for competitiveness. I mean, I haven't seen more people switch off the NBA Finals to watch the Stanley Cup Finals. That's how uncompetitive the NBA Finals were.
And I was one of those people. I watched maybe the very end of Game 1 of the NBA Finals when J.R. Smith made the greatest play in NBA history by running off the court. But in all seriousness, I watched the entire Stanley Cup Final series between the Washington Capitals and the Vegas Golden Knights more than I watched the NBA Finals, just because it's a better league.
And we should reiterate, we are not hockey fans. We hardly know anything about hockey. But I knew enough to know that Vegas, that was their first year. And for them to make Stanley Cup Finals shows that it's more competitive in that certain league. I mean, it's not just in hockey. You have football. Yeah, everything in the AFC is run through Tom Brady. But as you could see last year, you can beat Tom Brady.
And you certainly can't say that about this year in the NBA. The Rockets came close, but who knows what would have happened if Chris Paul would have stayed healthy. And the NBA is just going to suffer because of it. I think their viewership is going to decrease, especially if DeMarcus Cousins is close to healthy and the Warriors just run through another championship. Something needs to be done, and we're looking at you, Adam Silver.
I just think personally this season my viewership of the NBA is going to go down. I don't look forward to the playoffs. I don't look forward to the finals because I know the end result. But let's stop talking about the NBA. Let's talk about something that's coming up soon, actually in about a week, and that's the MLB All-Star Game.
Actually, we are going to have to put the All-Star Game talk on hold for a second because we have a little bit of breaking news. That's right, as of 3:57 on Wednesday, July 11th, the Houston Astros have optioned Ken Giles to minor leagues and have recalled Sinel Perez from AAA. And I do apologize if I'm butchering that name, but Ken Giles is now not a Houston Astro. Andy, what are your immediate thoughts on this?
Honestly, I could see this coming. It wasn't just last night's performance that this alludes to, it's all year. I mean, if you look at his numbers, he has an 0-2 record. He has a 4.99 ERA. Yes, he's 12 and 12 in save situations, but if you look at those non-save situations, look at his ERA. He's 6.57.
And even in those 12 save situations, it seems as though every save situation, he has at least one runner get on base and or at least one run score. And as a closer, you're supposed to absolutely shut down and lock down. Now, I get it. You will have hiccups here and there where you may give up a home run or you may walk 2 or 3 batters or so. But this seems like a consistent trend for Ken Giles. And this is not what our closer should be.
And this really hasn't been just this season. I think it's been since we've gotten Ken Giles. I've never felt easy with Ken Giles on the mound. And I'm not trying to discredit him as a bad pitcher. I know he can be good. He can be great. But for some reason, in big situations, especially last year in the playoffs, you saw he crumbled. And with this year, it just seems like either he's dominating or he's blowing the game. So I think this demotion is a good thing for him to get his mind straight and focus more on baseball. But I truly believe he just lost his closer role with the Astros.
Absolutely. And I think as of right now, Hector Rondon will be our closer going forward. I mean, something may happen at the trade deadline, Brad Hand, but as of right now, Hector Rondon, who has a 1-2 record and 1.62 ERA and a 7-10 in save situations, is our starting closer, and that's not exactly a bad closer to have.
No, I agree with you on that one. And other than that little hiccup yesterday, Rondon's pretty much shut down games when we needed him to. And even if you look at yesterday's game, Rondon shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. Giles came into the inning. He threw 8 pitches. He gave up 3 hits. All 3 people he faced got on base. All 3 came around to score. Now, when Rondon came in, he ended up striking out 2. And he left 1 ball over the plate. And that's what ended up tying the game. But as I said, Rondon was in there to clean up the mess, and he should have never been in that situation to begin with.
I agree with you on that point, and now I believe Ken Giles does have to go put the work in to become the Astros closer again. In 2016, we did trade some good prospects, including Vince Velasquez, for him, so he could be our closer going forward. Since that trade, it just seems very iffy. I mean, in 2017, the regular season, he had a very, very, very solid season, and it wasn't until the playoffs that he actually started crumbling away, and then we started using guys like Chris Davinsky and Brad Peacock to close out games, and Charlie Morton in Game 7 of the World Series. But now I see that he does have to go down to AAA if he ever wants to become a closer again, not only for the Houston Astros, but for any other team in Major League Baseball.
And I think the big thing that got him sent down is the disrespect he showed at his manager, AJ Hinch, last night. He had a outburst that should not happen on the field. And I get it, you're competitive and you may be upset with yourself, but you never show up your manager. And I think that's the whole reason, or at least the big reason on why they're sending him down now.
So going forward, there will be a hole in the Astros bullpen with Ken Giles being sent down. So as of right now, Hector Rondon will be our starting closer, as I alluded to earlier. But what do you think this means for the rest of our bullpen going forward, Andy?
Well, I'm hoping it lights a fire under them, and it shows that, hey, even the person who supposedly has a role can be sent down. Then maybe we should all step it up. Maybe it'll help Devo get out of his little funk he's been in. I mean, he hasn't necessarily been bad, but we've seen him be better, you know? And you have guys like Colin McHugh, who I believe should be an all-star. I believe he got snubbed. He has a 1.02 ERA, and his whip percentage is .73, and you're telling me that's not an all-star?
So that's actually the second point of our baseball talk that I wanted to get into was our all-star snubs. You've already mentioned Colin McHugh's numbers. I think my biggest snub, at least on the Houston Astros, is, dare I say, Evan Gattis. Now, I want to preface this by saying I understand Gattis is hitting about 250, and that's pretty mediocre in baseball terms. But I saw the catchers that they put on for this all-star roster, Wilson Ramos being really the only good hitting catcher. I think Evan Gattis could have gotten into the all-star game as the backup catcher instead of Salvador Perez, who is hitting a paltry 213 right now, whereas Evan Gattis is hitting 254.
But at the same time, you got to look at Evan Gattis' at-bats are not as a catcher. He's a designated hitter. That's what he is assigned as. He hasn't caught this year, I believe. So I don't think that even if they wanted to put him in as a catcher, they could, because he hasn't had enough at-bats at that position.
And that's a fair point, and I don't know if that's just my Houston Astros bias that I want to see Evan Gattis in, but another Astro I do believe should have at least made a little bit more all-star consideration was Yuli Gurriel. Yuli Gurriel is batting .305 and has a .777 OPS. In the last 7 games, he has a .769 slugging percentage. Those are all-star caliber numbers he's putting up at first base.
No, I completely agree with you on Yuli. I believe he should be an all-star. He leads the league with a .467 batting average with runners in scoring position. So obviously he's very valuable, not just to our team, but just to baseball. And I truly believe he should have been an all-star. And it's not just the Houston Astro fan in me. But there's also other players I believe should have been all-stars who are not with the Astros. Let's look at someone who I think everyone agrees that should be an all-star right now, and that's Blake Snell of the Tampa Bay Rays. Blake Snell has the second lowest ERA in the American League at 2.09. He has a 12-4 record, and his whip percentage is at 1.03. And I believe he should have made the all-star roster.
And I agree with you. I think it's a crime this guy's not in the all-star game right now. He is the second lowest ERA in the American League behind only Justin Verlander. His ERA is lower than guys like Trevor Bauer, Corey Kluber, and Chris Sale. 3 not only all-star caliber pitchers, but potential Cy Young Award winners this season. His ERA is ahead of Luis Severino, who, according to the baseball critics, could be the Cy Young Award winner this year. I don't know if it's because Tampa's a small market or if they thought they only needed one representative in Wilson Ramos, but I think it's a crime this guy is not in the All-Star game right now.
Well, I think the whole big thing with that is that he is in a smaller market, and from what I've been hearing, it's because players themselves didn't get to vote lately. They had to vote, I believe, a month or 2 ago, so I don't think they could see the progress of what Blake Snell was going to become and blossom into. But I truly believe that he should make the All-Star team. And even if he gets to be an injury replacement, he deserves that spot. And we mentioned Yuli Gurriel being snubbed at first base for the American League. Well, I believe there was another snub at first base in the National League. Jesus Aguilar for the Milwaukee Brewers. He has been tearing up the ball lately. He's batting .302. He has an OPS of 1,000 with 23 home runs and 64 RBIs. Now, I get Paul Goldschmidt, and he's a Woodlands guy. I like him as a player, but he had such a slow start to this season. I really believe that Jesus Aguilar beat him for that job. Because Jesus Aguilar is carrying the Milwaukee Brewers to a first-place spot when guys like Lorenzo Cain has been on the DL or guys like Christian Yelich has been underperforming lately. So I believe he is an all-star just because he has been their offensive spark that they needed for the last couple of months, and that's what I think is what's carrying them over the Cubs right now. So we've talked about the snubs, we talked about some of the selections, but I guess let's end this by asking each other, who do you think is going to actually win the game?
The National League, if Matt Scherzer pitches like the Cy Young Award winner he is and throws a complete game no-hitter and shuts out everybody. But I don't see that happening, considering this is a game that now means nothing in baseball except for an over-glorified exhibition game. So I see the American League winning, and I'm going to throw a score out there, 10-4, and I think Jose Altuve will be the MVP.
Yeah, I'm also going for the American League. I just think they're way too stacked for the National League pitching. And I'm also going to throw out that Jose Altuve is going to be the MVP and score every run and do the best and outscore everybody. He's going to throw a no-hitter too.
Because baseball, but even after he goes 4 for 4 and hits 4 home runs, they'll still give it to Aaron Judge for going 0 for 4 strikeouts because he's a Yankee, and that's baseball too.
All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed our second episode of the J&J podcast. If you like us, please subscribe to our channel. We will be doing another podcast next week, and we're going to hopefully be doing this weekly. Yeah, just like, share, subscribe to us. If you want to share it with your friends, please share it with your friends. We welcome new listeners. If you want to comment and tell us your opinions on any situation we talked about, go ahead, and we'll see you next week.